real fast. Took me about a minute just to kind of draw that out, and I also drew it out up there, okay? Then I'm gonna just take some measurements and cut points, and I'm gonna cut that all out outside here. And what I'm gonna use to assist myself is a chalk line, and this is the important part, you guys, non-staining chalk, okay? Not red, not blue, okay, none of those colors, because those will stain the material. This chalk, and I'll pass it around, this is dust off chalk. Guys, it's basically what you use on a chalkboard. It will not stain the material, okay? Hopefully you're sweeping off the area that you're gonna be rolling out your vinyl. I mean, there's no way we're not gonna be able to pick up little pieces, but you need to clean it as you go. But I'm realistic because I've been out there on the job sites with you guys. So from, my territory, I have 12 states. So I cover from Texas to Hawaii and Idaho to California that I do the training. So I'm working in apartments everywhere as far as that goes. So I pretty much seen quite a bit of it. But the goal, again, you guys, is to make a little diagram on the back of the material. And Tim, this is where I'm going to use your assistance. What I want to show you on this is getting my measurements right now. I know I got 12-foot material out there, and the very first measurement that I want to get here is my length. Okay, how long is this all the way down? So I'm going to come down here, and I'm about 20 feet, but I'm going to add 2 inches to that in case something swung. So that cut, my longest cut is going to be 20 foot, 2 inches. Okay? My next cut, or my next measurement, is going to be the doorway, because this, we're going to, as Tim talked about, we're going to put a seam right here, okay, in a wood pattern, because sometimes the jobs are so long. I'm working one at Camp Pendleton, San Diego on the base. Our longest cut is 44 feet, okay? So, and it's a wood visual as well. So we gotta cut it and put it back together. So we're gonna show you how to cut this with set marks and put it back together exactly where we cut it. So everything matches up. So we're gonna cut it and then put it back together, period. That way we get the best possible seam we can. So what I want to do right now is I want to get that measurement, and that measurement is going to be 1411. 1411.
Are you measuring mid-door? Did you measure mid-door?
No, I'm measuring right where the door swings.
Okay.
Good question, okay? And this door is swinging back here. So we want the seam back where the door swings.
Underneath the door.
Underneath the door.
If you're going to do this, and that doorway has a door, you want your seam underneath the door. So when the door's closed, you don't see the seam.
What happens when there's no door?
Then just go center, okay, of that passageway.
Center of the doorway. Okay, that's typically what we'll say, center of the doorway when there is no door. Typically, unless your work order says differently. Always go with what your work order says. Okay, guys, the next 2 measurements that are real important here is going to be the measurement to this island. And I'm going to go net plus 2. Net plus 2. So net is 7.6. I'm going to add 2. It's going to be 7.8. Okay? The next measurement is going to be to where this ends, but I'm going to go 2 back that way because I want the 2 to run back up. So that net measurement is 9'7". So we're going to go back to 9'5". Okay, that's going to allow me to cut this out right here. Okay, my next important measurement is the width of the room. The less material that I need to bring in here, the easier it is for me to fit this in, obviously. Okay, and remember, spending a little bit of time doing these measurements and cutting it off makes it simple to install because you're basically cutting it to fit.
I have a saying that Time is time. You're either going to spend the time getting it ready to go in, or once you get it in here, you're going to spend the time dealing with all that extra material.
And the possibility of damaging it because there's so much extra material there.
So repairing your tears.
Yeah, time is time, as Tim said. Use it to your advantage. Okay, and I'd also say, Tim, this is going to be 9 foot wide. 9 foot wide. Okay. I also say, you guys, you should work the job. You should work the material. The material never should work you. Okay, and the way to work the material is to work smarter. Not, I understand we're all in a hurry. We're all, go. We need to get to the next unit. But when you start doing this all the time, it's fast. You just start going, okay? So I got all my measurements and I got it on my little sheet out there. So I just kind of write it on that. While my helpers prepping, or the guys are prepping, and if you worked with me before, some of you have, you'll notice while your guys are in there prepping, I'm drawing that out right now. And then we'll pull it off the truck, get it on the driveway, and I'll start snapping my lines while they're in there doing their prep work, sweeping, patching, taking care of everything. Then I'm just gonna roll these rolls up, and I'm gonna have them staged, ready to come in where they need to go. Another thing, you guys, leaving material in the sun, not a good idea. Try and get it off your truck in a shaded area, because what happens, you guys, when you leave material in the sun, it expands, it grows. And then when you bring it in to the cooler unit and it touches the colder concrete, it shrinks. Okay, so once you get this stuff cut, you want to get it rolled up and put somewhere that direct sunlight is not beating down on it. You can usually find a spot. You don't
Keep it in the shade.
Passage. Keep it in the shade. Another thing we're going to do, you guys, after we cut this in, we've got to talk about how we're going to glue it in, because it's a little bit chopped up area. The method that I prefer to use is a method that we take from doing hospital patient rooms, where we're coating up all the way around the patient room, where we put our center section in first with set marks and roll both directions. So when I bring this in, you guys are going to see me, I'm going to, with a piece of tape, I'm going to put a set mark right here, and I'm going to put a set mark right here on this wall here. And then I'm going to transfer that set mark onto my material. So when I bring this piece in, we're going to roll this section this way, and we're going to roll this section this way. So they're going to kind of come together like this. We're going to hit that mark and hit that mark. We're going to drop this section in, and then we're going to drop that section in, instead of trying to bring it in, because remember, I'm up over here about 3 inches. So even though I'm going to be able to vent this side and this side, I'm not going to be able to vent that side, and I don't want a chance damaging the material. Okay? So I'm going to start right here and go both ways. Okay? Questions, anybody, or comments before I start cutting out the material? Okay? Because, and this is not something that all guys will do, but what I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm going to remove that selvage right there. I'm going to take it off. And the reason why is I don't want this at the end of the wall. Because if you put a piece of quarter round up right here, it leaves that little line. And we call that, there's a name for that little line. That little line, we call it a cattle tap. Because if your wall is skewed or goes back and forth, you're gonna, that's the first thing your eyes are gonna pick up. You're gonna see that line moving back and forth, okay? So the very first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my straight edge, and I'm just gonna take this off. Again, you guys, this is an option. It's what we like you to do, but it's not something that we do all the time.
Understand, if you have a wide plank, right, or a wide tile going to the wall, if you have a big space from the wall to the line, the farther the space is, it doesn't show the crookedness. But if you have a line close to the wall and the wall's crooked, it stands right out. You see. So it really distracts from the visual.
How far are we going in when we have this one left?
We would do slightly that too. That's what
And also, Tim, talk about why we gave them the knives and why we don't want them using carpet knives.
So, yeah, Scott asked me to talk about the knives that are in your pouch. You know, we gave you guys a knife with a straight blade, utility blade, a heavy duty blade. You know, this material, especially when you start double cutting it, you know, your slotted blade, your Bloody Mary blade, we call it, you know, it flexes. It's going to be moving a lot, and that's going to make your cut uneven. So when you have a strong cut that you're making, or a seam quality cut, you know, you want to have, you want that cut that you make to be nice and straight. Well, the more pressure you put on your knife, the more that blade is going to flex. So that's why a knife like this is very useful to use. The other thing too, when you have a material that tears easily or cracks or breaks easily, or even just a heavy commercial material like linoleum, you know, a lot of times we'll score it, and then we'll finish the cut with a hook blade. All right? Because that way we're not dulling our blade. We're not having to push all the way through with the straight blade to get it cut all the way through. We'll finish up a wall cut or a relief cut with a hook blade. Same thing when you bring the material in and you start working with the material, if you use a hook blade, you know you're not cutting the wall. You know what I mean? You know you're not cutting too deep. This hook blade will cut the material more safely without damaging any of the other material underneath it or the wall or whatever you're working at. So a hook blade is very handy for a vinyl installer, especially when you're working with material that can crack or break or tear more easily.
Another way of doing that is go ahead and pick a plank that you know that are the same planks, which this one here would be 6 inches, and I'll come down to this one here, which is 6 inches.
Because that's the next match, right?
Okay?
You find the exact match.
And you guys, I guess this is a good opportunity to talk about matching. Okay, a lot of you guys are not doing your matches. On most of your wood, and I understand on wood visual repair, we have a true match and we have the economy match. Most of you guys are using the economy match. Okay, which is fine. But remember, on most of the wood visuals, your match is typically about 54 inches. So you can see it right here. See that dot? That dot? That one, this one, and this one. That's your match. That's what's called your length match, because it's running the length. Okay, and that's going to be 54 inches. You also have what's called a width match. Now this one has a 6-foot width match. Okay, meaning that if I cut this guy right here, my next one is right here.
We'll use this right here because that's what we showed. There it is right there. So next time that little block there starts again, it's right here.
Okay.
You guys see that?
Okay. So that's your match on your width. There's also what's called, and this is important, you guys, a half drop match. It's called a half drop. And if you guys are running a shot with a field off to the side, maybe you need to put a 3-foot seam over here, you might have to get into the half drop. And a half drop means basically you go half of 54 in your material match. You guys, have you ever heard of half drop match? Okay, this is what it's about, okay? So
we measure over from this block, this plank, excuse me. Here's the next time it repeats. Okay? So can you guys see the knot?
oh, look at this right here.
See
That's
this start to repeat?
you got this and this.
Okay, so this is the next time. 6 feet over.
And you guys can't see, come up, because you need to know this when you're matching material. You got this and this matching. That's it. Because this is a 6-foot.
But what you should know is that if you come over 3 3 feet,
3 feet, guys.
right? From that drop, you'll pick up that pattern again. And here it is.
See, that's what we're looking at. This. Everybody see that? That means that what we did is we just moved the material half of a pattern match and we started it again on 3 feet. I'm going to use my hook knife at this point, and I'm not really worried about getting this super straight, and I'm going to go ahead and use my hook knife and just cut that off. Everybody see it has that hook on there, so it's not going to damage the blade.
Or the floor underneath.
Another thing about a knife, when I teach classes, you guys, your knuckles should always be dragging the ground. Because if your knife's up in the air, you have no control over your knife. It's going to wander all over the place. Your knuckles should be touching the floor. Also, if you're right-handed, scrap should always be towards your right. If you're left-handed, the scrap should be towards your left. Okay? We're just going to cut that guy down. Remember, guys, either do this outside or you try and do it in the house and damage the material. So it's much easier to get most of this material off right now when you're making an outside corner cut. What some guys will do is they'll go ahead and they'll cut it and they'll come to an extreme outside corner like this right here, and they cut it at a square. And what happens is it makes it very easy to rip and tear. So what we have them do is, instead of making that a square outside corner, we ask them to put a round into the outside corner. That way, it makes it less likely to rip and tear. Okay? The other thing we want you to do, whether any method you're using on an outside corner, whether it's a square or a round, is get a little bit of tape, and it can be masking tape, glue tape, duct tape, doesn't matter, and put a couple of pieces to help it from ripping. Gives it a little bit of topical strength. So, I'm going to lay my straight edge across my line. And the important thing is a new blade. Guys, you don't want to use an old blade. Whenever you cut a seam, you should be using a new blade. Okay? Also, I know Okay, Tim wanted me to bring up, you guys, you know when you pull your blades out, they have oil on them. So if you wipe your blade off before you cut a seam, you lessen the chance of getting the oil in the seam that will turn orange, yeah. It actually changes colors, okay? So it's a good idea to wipe off your oil off your blades when you put a new blade in.
You guys will see those blades were oiled. Ones in your knives are all oiled. We have rags, so before you start cutting your seam, make sure you wipe them, all right? Careful not to cut yourself.
Is this the one?
No. Well, yeah, that's where I finish it.
So what I'm going to do here, you guys, again, this is a seam that's going back together. I want to put my blade in. I want to keep it straight up and down, no bevel. And I want to cut it in one pass on my straight edge here. Okay?
It's important on seams that you have your cuts, the two pieces you're putting together on vinyl, they should be straight up and down. That makes the strongest seam. If you put a back cut in the seam, then you have a hole in the bottom. And it makes the seam weaker, and it can cause the seam to peak later peak up. So it's one of the things. So when you cut it, that's why it's important to cut it straight up and down. That's it.
What's great about this chalk, you guys, if you can see the chalk I'm using, just dust right off. It's a non-staining chalk, very important, okay? Okay, so we got it pretty much cut out the way we want it. What I got left to do, I can roll it up right now and try and force it in, but remember, you guys, I like to work the material. I don't like the material working me. So I'm gonna do the easy way, okay? And that is gonna be, I'm gonna put a set mark. I just drew a line on the tape, pull the tape off, and I'm going to put that on 74 inches. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. .4 inches, I can either make a mark or use tape. Okay? I'll just put a little mark right there on 74. And you guys, I'm not using a pen or a Sharpie, I'm using a pencil, okay? Because if you use a pen or a Sharpie, that ink's gonna get in there, and it's gonna stain the material. You can also do what I did right here. On the inside, you can carry a little piece of tape. This is the preferred method, and put your mark right there. Okay, that way you're writing on the tape. Okay? All right, guys, any questions?
But the nice thing about Stratamax is it isn't glass. It has felt in it in the middle. You can see the white line. So it's not going to bubble as easily as glass will. So, you know, we might do something like this area. So we know when we drop this in, it's not going to move. So roll it up to the set mark and glue this area. You know, then roll it back this way and glue that area and drop it into the glue. All right, and we'll talk a little bit more about glue and open time and all that when we start doing the seams. But that's one option I want you guys to be aware of. That's one reason that when you take all the extra time to make these set marks and to cut it down, that gives you the advantage that you go ahead and spread an area of glue ahead of time. Make sense? All right.
Actually, go past 7 now, if you want to net that wall. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and relieve this corner right here. So I'm just going to put a little 45 and out right there. I never cut all the way down, you guys. I always leave it up a little bit, you know what I mean? But so I'm going to relieve that right there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this corner right here, and I'm going to go ahead and 45 and out and relieve that one right there. Now this is a critical corner, you guys. You want to really make sure. Going down, going down. Okay. Okay, when I get to this corner right here, I'm going to do the same.
See whether the changes happen. Yeah.
Okay?
Got it.
Okay. All right, so now's the time to start making sure that everything's looking good. Okay? So I'm going to come over to my corners and make any adjustment at this point if I have to.
Scott, pull that wrinkle that way.
So on that, did you already apply the glue? Or
Sure.
so
That's
how are you-
totally optional. It's up to you.
Put it up if the glue was already set.
It's releasable adhesive. I just pull it right back up, move it down, and put it back down. Because we use releasable adhesive.
I know.
So, yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
just trying to make it seem
The
so
steps.
easy that you start screwing out with your feet. That's not always what it
Well, we may have to pull it back out,
Right.
push it down a little bit.
And again, looking at your set marks and, getting it in there as well. Okay? All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this doorway right here, and I'm going to relieve the pressure right here. So I'm going to take that guy right there, and this guy right here. Do the same thing on this one right here. You can go ahead and remove a little bit of this, get it to set in. And I think the most important part about this stuff, you guys, is releasing and letting everything set down. Very important that you do your relief cuts so everything's laying flat. When you get into these corners right here, I like to go ahead and grab my knife and just kind of spin these around here a little bit to get that to drop in. So basically, I want that corner to drop in there like that to relieve your corners. And then a lot of times, you guys, I gave you guys, everybody got a hook knife, because when you're trimming the wall down right here, if there's a little bit too much up, use your hook knife. It's safer to do those type of cuts. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cut these doorways in. And on these, you guys, I use my linoleum knife here. It's kind of like a stair tool, okay? But you can use it for tucking in and getting your cuts in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pencil mark right here on the concrete.
Just be careful not on a light pattern, not to rub the pencil lead against the edge. Okay, because that line just is a reference. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. So if you push the pencil lead away, don't get the pencil lead on the edge of your seam, because then it'll show. Now, the tape that you use, if you were going to use tape, and sometimes fellas with, are you guys all using releasable adhesive yet? And sometimes the tape is good to use with a releasable adhesive, like in front of a bathtub or in a doorway, or some places to hold the material so it doesn't shift while you're gluing. Just use the double-faced tape with the releasable adhesive. You can do that, okay?
All right, let's get that close again. Okay, so we got the tape ready there to go.
Now you're playing with glue already in there?
No glue.
No,
Yeah.
we're going to get the seam set first,
Oh.
Yeah, you always want to kind of set it up first.
because it's so important to get that seam right. You want to make sure you have it before you start making spread glue on this one. I don't do that. And or you can do, yeah, you got 761.
Just need a couple rags. So what we want to do is put this back together, okay? Exactly where it came apart. So what I'm going to do to make this seam, now this could either be glue or tape or whatever you're using. Typically it's going to be glue, okay? So we already put our tape underneath there. We're checking those 3 set marks to make sure that they're all together, okay? Make sure it's all set up here. What I'm going to do first is remove the paper off the tape. Usually it's your knife blade, you can get it in there and remove that tape.
How does that tape work on the
You gotta prime it if you're gonna put the tape. But here's the deal, you guys. As long as the tape bites the back of the material, then it's probably gonna release off the gypsum. And we've had good success with it.
seams glued together? Once
Yeah.
the seams glued together.
So basically, we're gonna drop that guy in and roll him in onto the tape. Then what we're gonna do is use our seam adhesive. This is the 761 seam adhesive, you guys. I like to kind of shake it up. It's much better than our old seam coaters and seam sealers because shelf life's a year on it. So you can just leave it in your truck, don't, keep it out of exposed sunlight, but it will last a year once you open it up. And it's gonna be pretty much like dabbing a tub, basically. This is a seam adhesive, okay? It's water soluble, so it cleans up with water. You don't need to put a lot on there, okay? Just put a small bead on your seam. We say about an 1/8 inch bead, 3/32, somewhere around there. You can see you don't need a lot. And where I'm putting it is right on the edge of the material. So I want it to be right on the edge of the material. Okay? And again, it's water soluble, so it cleans up pretty easy. You guys don't have to worry about that. Okay, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start right here on this one in the center and get my mark and go ahead. I like to use my spatula here and just go ahead and drop it in. And do the same thing on this side right here. From that point I'll get, and you guys, this is not a wet rag, this is a damp rag, okay? Once I get that, I'll go ahead and wipe off the material, and then I go ahead and roll it in, because I want to squish all that glue and work it out. Okay, I like to get the blue tape out of here too to make sure I don't get any blue tape stuck in my seam once that's in the adhesive. Okay, so roll it in real good. Make sure it flattens it out with your roller, and then it's water soluble, so the roller will just clean right up. Then go ahead and take your cloth and use your damp cloth, and then come back with your dry cloth and dry it out. Okay? And a lot of times what I'll do too is I'll get the end of my linoleum knife here and kind of just put a little pressure down and pull it in like this and make sure that it's flat all the way across this way right here. Just to kind of make sure that it's pulling it down and that all the adhesive is oozed out of it. And then again, wipe it down. The most important part of this, I think, is dry buffing it out and getting the dry glue off. Okay? Now, it's showing a line, and it is. You guys, there's no way you can cross a plank
Can't see it from here.
without showing a line.
On this side, the way because of the lighting, you can't see it, but you know, we're not going to tell the customer that it's invisible. We're just going to say that that's where we're going to put a seam to get the best installation. This is not a latex. If you use latex for carpet, this is not a latex. It is a rubber resin, but it's very thick. When you get a bottle of it, when you get ready to squeeze it out, you have to squeeze hard. ¿Entiendes? So, because it's very thick. So, what you want to do is when you first open a bottle up, you open the lid and look and make sure it's not clogged. And if it's hard, if it's cold that day or it's been cold, you know, you could do two things. One is you stir it up. Two, if it's been cold and it's not hard to come out, if you have a sink with some hot water, you just put a little bit of hot water in the bottom of the sink and set the bottle in the hot water and it'll loosen it up a little bit so it'll come out more easily. Okay? But you do not add water to it though, but I want you guys to understand it is very thick and that's normal. All right? And you know, let's say you open it up and then you don't use it for 2 weeks. And it's been in your van, you know? Well, the same thing. When you get ready to use it, open the lid, make sure the lid isn't clogged. It doesn't have any dried adhesive in the tip. And then also maybe take and stir it up. If you just stir it up, it'll flow more easily. Okay? A couple things about knifing. You know, Scott showed you you know, you might use your Bloody Mary to knife. And this stuff is so soft today, it'd probably knife it nice with a Bloody Mary. But, you know, guys will like to use a hook blade, you know? You guys may want to use the straight blade. It's what you're comfortable using. You see me using the linoleum knife because this is what I learned on. And as long as you can keep halfway an edge on it, it's a nice, useful little tool. But it doesn't matter, fellas. It doesn't matter which knife you use. The whole secret to getting a good fit is to keep your knife blade with the wall that you're cutting to. You guys can't see that over there, but the blade is with the wall. And that's what I want. I want that blade right in there, right against that wall. And I want to keep it right up against that. If I was using the hook blade, same thing. What you don't want to do, guys, you don't want, unless you're putting quarter round on, and even then, if you don't want to bring your knife down like this, you shouldn't hold your knife like this on an angle. And you sure shouldn't bring your knife down like this. And the reason for that is very subtle, but it makes a difference with how tight you get. Because if you hold it with the wall, it'll follow the wall, but also what it's doing, the vinyl is going up, and when you cut it, it's putting a back cut in it. It's like taking this wall right here and putting a back cut so it's closer at the top and there's no material at the bottom. It's on an angle like this. And so it'll tuck in there real nice and it won't be too tight to push out a bubble. You guys see that? Also, if you get it a little bit too tight, if for some reason, you know, you got it a little too tight and you're getting a bubble, well, if you take and you cut it like that, it's a lot easier if you only have that little bit of that tip to deal with. It's a lot easier to come back and trim a little bit off. See that? And it still looks good. The point of it is, guys, with a felt back like this, you can see the white in it, is that if you lay that piece down against the wall and you see white, you know you're cutting it the wrong way. It's cut it this way, so it's closer at the bottom than it is at the top. So you always have a little gap. You think you're leaving a gap, but it's touching on the bottom. You guys see that? Okay, so that's just, anytime you're knifing, that was the thing that we were taught. It was very important.
Okay, see this? That. They go together, but just on the same, right there. So I would put this one on top of that one first to line this up. And then you need to cut the window right here. Because, yeah, you can't see it. So what you do is you just kind of pull this up and cut yourself a little window like that. That's exaggerated. But now you can see where that goes, and then you do the same thing on this side right here, right? To adjust this one right here. Okay. See, you're just gonna kind of split the difference. Line that one up there, and line this one right here, and line this right here. Okay, and then got that lined up about right there. Okay, right there. Now to check it, you can go like this right here. See it? Now you can either cut it on this side right here.
This is to make it perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, that's what we recommend. Is we only recommend the right way of doing it. Like Tim was saying, if this was a refrigerator and all I was doing was this much seam, straight edge, put it together. Okay, but on a long seam, that's longer than, let's say 8, 9, 10, 12 feet, then you double cut it. But on a small seam, 3 foot, 4 feet, straight edge and butt. You can straight edge, put it together. But you can see, like see these dots right here? Match those dots right here. That one matches that one.
But you don't have to match this in the bone. Or you have to.
All the way down. Yeah. See, that's
because
why.
There's a point, see, like, they don't give you too much material. They try to save money.
Right. Understand.
We don't have enough.
Oh, yeah. You guys aren't matching. I understand that, yeah. But the most important thing to learn here is whenever you cut, don't cut right on a seam. Always come back about 1/8 of an inch back, okay? So when you cut this, when you guys go to cut this, you can do it 2 ways. You can leave that on and put this down. But if you do that, be real careful. You can either cut on that right there, or you can go this side on top and cut it right there. Okay? Because you got material about the right here. So you can go ahead and bring that about right there, and it's going to leave that grout joint, and it's going to put the seam just like it did on mine. Okay?
Okay. All right. Ready?
Yeah, you guys should be fine. So usually I like to put this piece in first. That way you can use this piece to seam right here. So I would put that in first.
So one of the keys to this, when you're doing any kind of inset repairs, is having some double-faced tape. Now some of you guys were over here and you saw me do this. I took a scrap piece of material and I laid it in the double-faced tape that I put down originally with my little scrap book. This piece right here. And I noticed that when I went to pull it up, the first time it wasn't pulling real good. So I changed. That's what you should do if you're using a double-faced tape for the first time with the backing. You don't want it to tear when you take it off. So the way you test it is what I just did. Just put some down, take your scrap piece of material, lay it on there, rub it in, and then pull it back and see if it'll pull off without tearing. Everybody see that? And that way, if it pulls off without tearing, but it holds it temporarily, that's what you want. But like some of these, if you're using a carpet double-faced tape, chances are, you're going to try to pull that off, you're going to be tearing your top piece to shreds. Everybody see that? So I checked with the double-faced tape. That's important right there. So I got a couple pieces down there so that I can line this up. But one of the things that I did here, when I got down towards this end joint, and I do this on all of my tiles, whatever I'm putting repair in, I'll leave it long, but I cut it close to these edges right here, so that I can pick up, not only do I have these two grout lines right here to try to line the pattern up, right? But I've also got, see these little lines right here? See that? That one won't show up, but that one right there will show through, that one right there. So I can use those visually to see if I have it lined up on the pattern. And then one other thing that I did, some of you guys didn't see me do it, but if you look right here, you'll see a pencil line. I just do this only for planks, okay? You put a pencil line on one side of the grout line, and just be careful that you don't want to use a pin, you don't want to scratch the floor, but just put a light pencil line in there, and then on the same place, on the replacement piece, I have these two pencil lines. Everybody see that? So when it comes time for me to bring this in here and line this up, I can go to those pencil lines, just like my set marks, right? So I can go to those pencil lines, and the other thing I can do is I can look and see, how does it look right there? Is that good? Is that good? And I'll probably want to knife this down to the wall. Now, before I cut it though, is it off? Drop that down, that thing moved on. Really the problem today is more that it's just nice and warm and everything is nice and sticky. All the adhesive is grabbing good. Now, one other thing I can do here to make sure, before you start cutting, to make sure that you have it where you want it, is take the tip of your knife. I'm going to change this blade. You're going to take the tip of your knife, point it into your blade, and I'm going to insert it in here where I'm going to make the seam. So in other words, I'm just going to take this, and where I want to make the seam, I'm going to go ahead and punch it. Hold it straight up and down, and punch that through, lift it back, and you can see where you're at. I want to check it down here too though, guys. I want to make sure that I got this thing where I want it. Once you get it where you want it, I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Now I'm taking a risk here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the grout line off. Why am I doing that? Well, if you cut the grout line off the piece on top, it leaves the grout line on the bottom, right? If you make a mistake, you got one more chance. Does everybody see that? So, that's why I did that. When you get down to the end of your cut, stand your knife straight up. What that does is when you're making a cut into a corner, you know, if you just keep your knife down like this, it'll cut it at the top, but it won't cut it all the way into the bottom, and it leaves felt on it. So you stand your knife up, and it helps you straighten that cut, so when you pull it out, it comes out cleaner. You don't have to clean it out as much. And then the other thing I need to do is I need to get over on this side, change my position here. If you're doing a square, if you're doing cutting out a square or even a rectangle like this, do yourself a favor. Before you pull this piece out, put a mark so you know which way it went. Because when you cut a square, it's not perfectly square. So when you pick it up, you put it over here, then you put glue, or now you got to grab it. way did I put that thing in there, right? So always put a little mark so when you take it out, you know which way it's going to go. Now I want to be as careful as I can. Some of that tape out of there.
Just straight right here. Just a little bit.
It's nice and sticky today. The other rule is no matter if you're doing a repair like this in vinyl or doing a repair with a VCT, it's always a rule is the same. You never come here like this. Huh? You always start in the center and you work towards the edge. Right?
That's the goodest.
Be careful when you come to the edge in case you didn't cut it through. As you get up close to that edge there, be careful. Make sure that if you find a place where you didn't cut it all the way, that you catch it so that you can finish cutting it so it doesn't tear. That's the rule. What's the difference between a inset repair like this, repair inset, and when you have the releasable adhesive versus the permanent adhesive?
Route breaking.
What'd you say?
Breaking.
Yeah, I was going to say about 15 minutes. Right? And then if you got to let your glue dry, then it's a little bit more, right? That's what I was thinking. About 15 minutes, somewhere maybe, depending on how big an area is and how well it's stuck, it might be a little longer, as you guys probably know. So this is going to be the same. I'm going to put a little bit in here. I try to use just a little less when I do the repairs. So I don't want to have to force all of that adhesive out of there. The other thing you want to do is always get your corners set. If I was putting this in as a tile or a plank, what I would do is I would take all these corners and I'll bend them down like this. You see that? And that's what you want to get, is when you set it in, set your corners. Get all your corners in, make sure they're okay, right? And then you roll the middle. This one's easy because it doesn't have 4 corners. Excess out of there, off of there. Still got a roll. I'm going to try to push out any of that excess adhesive. If you do the permanent adhesive, guys, you had to scrape it. What I'll do is, instead of putting the adhesive down on the floor, put the adhesive on the back of your piece. Take a paintbrush or take a little small hand trowel, and put it on the back of your piece that you're going to put in, because it will flash off quick and it will be easier to put it on. You don't want to put it exactly right to the edge. You want to hold it back just about an eighth, because you're going to use the seam adhesive, right? And in fact, if it's just a small repair and on a permanent adhesive, you can use that 761. You don't have to use 288 or one of the others, because that's 761, the seam adhesive, that's a permanent adhesive, right? It will hold. Okay?